Yo, what's up, movie people? I hope you're doing well. This is going to be my entire Pixar ranking tier list. I just saw Elemental, so we're going to add that to the list. But let's get right to the tier list. Alright, before we get started, make sure you leave a like. It helps out a lot. Share it with your friends. But I would want you guys to leave your list down below in the comments. I love seeing other people's Pixar lists because it varies. But let's start with our first Pixar movie, which is Toy Story 1. You know, Toy Story 1 is actually such an amazing film. You know, it's crazy what Pixar was able to do with their first film and have it be like one of the best animated films of all time. And I literally watched that as a child. Now I watch it as an adult. Like, you can find enjoyment as a child from this and find enjoyment as an adult. This film will live on for generations to come. It will never actually leave media. Everyone's going to be showing this to their kids every single year for like the rest of the generational lifetime. Like, you know, this film will never die, and I feel like this film has a great story, great characters, and Sid Sid is just a menace in this movie. But the third act is hilarious. I gotta give it to them. Pixar really did knock it out of the park with Toy Story 1, so it's of course going into the amazing tier. Next up, we got A Bug's Life. I did a whole Pixar rewatch this year, and I have never seen The Bug's Life, I don't know, to my knowledge, until this latest rewatch that I did, and I actually had a great time watching this movie. It was actually a really great surprise, I would say, because I wasn't really expecting a lot off the title of the movie called A Bug's Life. I wasn't like expecting to be blown away of like watching A Bug's Life, but it's actually a really good movie to put on. It's really chill. You actually go with the main character a lot. He's kind of like an outsider. No one really likes him. He's kind of like a mess up, but he really does turn into like a hero by the end. And I really love like the mechanics of everything in this movie. The animation isn't Pixar's best, but I still feel like it has a great story with a great main character. So A Bug's Life is going to go into the good tier. Next up, our second Toy Story film, Toy Story 2. I really do love all the Toy Story films. Let's just get that out of the way before we get to all the other ones. But Toy Story 2 is one that I think is stylistically very beautiful, like some other Pixar movies. Especially, we all know the scene where Woody is getting his whole makeover done, getting polished up. That's one of the most beautiful Pixar moments that I think I've ever seen, and I applaud them for that. And this is, of course, the movie where they had the mishap where they almost deleted like almost the entire film, but one person had it backed up on their computer, so we almost never got that scene, but I'm happy we did. And this is the one where they go to the toy store. I feel like that's great. This is the one where they make Jessie, and you know, I feel like Jessie's a great character to be added to this. But I don't know, there's something about this Toy Story movie kind of irks me the wrong way. I always thought Jessie should have ended up with Woody, because they're both cowboy, cowgirl. And I don't know, Bo Peep just doesn't interest me as a romance in this movie. I don't know, but I guess Woody and Jessie are just good friends. But you know, this is also another amazing Pixar movie, so it's going into the amazing tier. They never mess up with Toy Story. Next up is Monsters Inc. Monsters Inc. is one that I've seen so many times as a kid, as a teenager, now as an adult. I've seen it many times. And honestly, I think it just gets funnier every time I watch it. This might be Pixar's funniest movie, but it also has a lot of heart with it, with Boo, Sully, Mike, a lot of friendship between Sully and Mike, and then you got Randall going against them. It's actually kind of scary in that third act at some points too with Randall. And I do not think this is like a true kids movie. There's just so many moments where a kid could just get scared because it's a monsters movie, and it's like a movie about monsters scaring kids. So, you know, I feel like this movie has a lot of adult themes, and I really enjoy it a lot. But I don't think it's one of Pixar's best films, I would say. I think it still belongs maybe in the top 10. We'll see where we go from here. But I still think Monsters, Inc. belongs in the great tier. Next up is Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is also one that I've watched a lot since I was a kid. In my most recent rewatch, I actually didn't like it as much as I used to. You know, Finding Nemo has a lot of praise from people that I've seen on TikTok, YouTube. They've all put it in their top 10, top 5 even. But I just don't feel as connected to this movie as a lot of other people. And a lot of other people like Ellen DeGeneres as Dory, but I just don't like her. I feel like Ellen's voice is just annoying to me. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just not the best voice acting performance that they could have got for that character. And I do actually like the character. It's just Ellen DeGeneres' voice just takes me out of the whole movie. But the story is actually great. And I love some of the visuals underwater. Like, it's so cool what they can do with the underwater visuals in this movie. And then when they get to the dentist, it's actually horrifying for me because I'm horrified of the dentist. So that scene is just not for me at all. But, you know, I feel like Finding Nemo is a really good movie. I don't know if I'm going to put it in the great tier because it just doesn't live up for me personally. But I can respect people that put it in their top 5, top 10 because it's visually and like its storytelling is amazing. Just it doesn't really resonate with me personally. But next up, we got The Incredibles. Okay, The Incredibles is up there. The Incredibles is a phenomenal Pixar movie. Like, if you watch this and no one told you this was a Pixar movie, you probably wouldn't even think it was a Pixar movie because Pixar taking on a superhero kind of like genre is kind of nothing what we expected from them. No one expected them to take on a superhero movie and even have Brad Bird directing, but Brad Bird directed the hell out of this movie. He did so good with this movie, and then it took him like over 10 years, I think, to make a sequel. Brad Bird, you gotta hurry it up, man. I love your craft, but you gotta hurry up with that third one, man. I'm waiting. We need a trilogy. But Incredibles 1, fantastic superhero film. One of the best superhero films of all time, if not like top 5, I think. And its villain Syndrome is such a cool villain. Such like a satanic villain, I think. He's like pretty evil down to the bone. But I love the whole family here. The whole family elements are awesome. I love when they're not superheroes, when they are. Frozone by Samuel L. Jackson. Just amazing. The animation really isn't top tier, but I think it works a lot. There's a lot of different colors in this movie. A lot of different scenes that actually... I actually think this movie is actually more for teenagers than it is for kids. I feel like it's more of a teenage Pixar movie. It really works a lot on so many different levels. And the final act is just stunning what they're able to do. So it's going in the amazing tier. Next up is Cars 1, our first Cars movie. You know, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but the Cars movies never lived up to me. I never fully resonated and thought any of the Cars movies were great. And I'm going to get a lot of hate when I get to Cars 2 and 3, but, you know, that's okay. We all have our different opinions. I can respect it. But Cars 1, I think Cars 1 is good. I think it's good. You know, I don't go back to it as much as I would want to, but I still feel like it's good. I love when they're in the little town. Those are my favorite parts. My least favorite parts are actually when they're racing, because I don't find like there's no character moments that you can have during that. I feel like it's just racing scenes, like generic scenes where something goes wrong. Oh, he gets fixed. He wins the race. I don't see any really great character moments during that. But when they're in the town, when he's like kind of selfish and then he gets to be selfless by the end, I really do like those moments between him and every other person in town, especially Motor. Owen Wilson, great job in this movie. I love Owen Wilson. So I don't really have a lot to say about Cars. I think it's good, not great. Next up, Ratatouille, as we like to call it. And I think Ratatouille is also an amazing Pixar movie. This movie kind of, it changed. Like, when I watched it as a kid, all I remember is like, oh wow, this movie is awesome. You see a rat cooking. But there's so many different themes when you watch this movie. Like, there's just so much different stuff happening. And this is also one I appreciate more when I'm adult. Like, artistically, this is also one of the most artistically, like, stylistic Pixar films that they have, with like making the food, how the camera shifts, so many colors popping off screen. You know, I just feel like they put a lot of care into this movie, in this story. And it's actually really funny at points, especially when all the rats come in and start cooking, and then the health inspector guy comes in and they're like, they just tied him up and put him in the freezer. And that's so funny. And the end is just full circle. Movie's called Ratatouille, and they made a restaurant called Ratatouille, which I don't know why all the people are eating from a restaurant called Ratatouille, but, you know, I guess if the rats are clean, I guess I would eat there. You know, if it's that good and they go through the dishwasher, I guess I would eat there. I mean, they're clean, right? If they go through the dishwasher, no hate, I don't know. But, you know, this film is just amazing. It's amazing. So it's going in the amazing tier. Next up, WALL-E. I love Wall-E. Wall-E is one of my favorite movies and favorite animated movies of all time. It's a science fiction movie, so you know what I'm gonna say. I love it. I love science fiction. What they do with this movie is crazy. We start on just a planet, just with Wall-E. I think the planet's Earth, to my knowledge. I haven't watched this one in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's Earth, and it's just fully abandoned. Wall-E's like one of the last robots on there. He just compacts metal into a box and he just builds up towers with these little metal boxes that he crafts. And Eve comes down, and they have one of the most fantastic relationships that you'll see on screen. Not just Pixar, but overall. Like, it's crazy what they're able to do with a little robot named Wall-E and another robot named Eve, where they can hardly really speak with each other, except just like little words, little sentences, little sounds. And I felt like this movie really did change how I felt about Pixar. You know, sometimes you feel like Pixar can be pretty generic at points and pretty copy and paste with their little emotional scenes, but this movie actually got me tearing up a lot by the end, especially when Wall-E like turns off. He forgets everything, and that's just really upsetting for me, because you go on a whole journey with them, and then you have the whole like scene when they're in the spaceship. Wall-E's just running from everyone. Oh my goodness, the direction behind this movie is just outstanding. And then you have the scene between Eve and Wall-E outside the ship in the space. It's just fantastic what they're able to do with this movie. And it also has a lot of themes that are happening today. You know, people are just addicted to screens. They don't go outside, and they just don't want to interact with other people. So it's crazy how far along this movie was for society back then, and Pixar really just was on it. They were on it, and like the writing behind this movie is one of Pixar's best, and I just fully connect with what they're trying to tell you in this movie. And hopefully this movie gets looked back on in a long time and people still respect it, because I totally will. So I'm going to put Wall-E in the amazing tier. Next up, we have Up. Up is probably one of the most emotional movies of Pixar, and a lot of people would agree with that, especially during that first 10 minutes. And when his wife dies, you really do get the feelings started in a Pixar movie early. This is one of the first ones where your feelings get like going really early, because usually Pixar films leave you off on a sad note, but this one really leaves you off on more of a happy note and starts you off on a sad note, because that's what they're trying to really tell you in the story. This is also a pretty funny Pixar movie, I would say. Once they get with the bird and then Doug the dog, it's pretty funny what they're trying to do. You know, I feel like the third act was a little too much for me. Like, it like got to like a level where I didn't really know this is too much for me. And, you know, I respect Pixar for what they're trying to do there. But overall, a lot of people have this in their top 10, but I think it's still a great movie, just not like amazing for me. Next up, we got Toy Story 3. What do I gotta say? Everyone knows that this movie is just an amazing story that they're able to tell, with an amazing villain, with Lotso, who you wouldn't even guess this man would be an amazing villain, but he is. And you got Ken in this movie, and Barbie, getting ready for Barbie, you know. You could watch this movie before Barbie, you know, get ready for it. But yeah, this movie is just fantastic. I don't know if it's my favorite Toy Story, but it's fantastic, so it's going in the amazing tier. We got Cars 2. Oh no, not Cars 2. I'm gonna get hated on for my take here. Cars 2 is just not the movie for me. During my rewatch, I had a hard time getting through this movie. I didn't like what direction they were taking this movie in. Like, it's a spy movie now. How is a Cars movie a spy movie? We went so grounded with the first movie, and now we're a spy movie. I can't even remember half the characters' names after this one, because I just didn't care. I didn't care what was going on. You know, I feel like the first act is strong a little bit. It's good. I'm not going to say strong. It's good. Second and third act just go off the rails for me. I hardly remember what happened. And if I hardly remember what happens, then that means I just don't like it. You know, I don't like it at all. So I'm going to put Cars 2 in the bad tier. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Pixar doesn't have a terrible movie, but it's not good. Next up, we got Brave. Brave is one that, you know, I haven't watched in years. I don't even remember. It's like A Bug's Life. I haven't watched it in forever, so I didn't remember anything going into it. But it's not a bad Pixar movie, but it's definitely not a great Pixar movie. I feel like the story is just not Pixar's standard. I feel like it could be a lot better. It's a really simplistic story. It feels like a story I would get from Illumination or even like a Disney film nowadays, because Disney's gone a little basic. But I feel like the animation is kind of cool. There's a lot of good humorous moments in there, and I do like how it's set in like a different time period. I do like that. So I'm gonna give Brave an okay tier. Next up, we got Monsters University. Ooh, I'm not gonna say I love Monsters University, but I had a fantastic time with this movie. I feel like this is one of the most rewatchable Pixar movies because it's so much fun. It just, having it based around a university and college makes it even more fun, in my opinion, because the characters are just so rowdy in this one and they act so different from Monsters Inc. But you still got Mike trying to lift everyone up, trying to be the hero, trying to be a monster. This film is all about Mike trying to fit in with the other monsters, like Sully trying to be a scary monster. And when it gets down to it, he does. He believes in himself and he does do it, but it gets down to a point where Sully rigged the machine. But, when we get to that little camp scene at the end, which I actually really appreciated, liked a lot, Sully and Mike are a great duo and they can both scare with each other's help. So that's basically what the story is all about. And I really appreciate it's about friendships you make in school and how they last, and how you guys can each help your other selves out in school and even on after that and get jobs with each other, like Monsters Inc. But I feel like this one's awesome. You have a lot of great side characters in this one. You even got Aubrey Plaza as one of the students in the school running the tournament. And then you have a lot of different moments in this movie that you just want to go back to. Like, all the different games are just so fun. So I'm going to put Monsters University in the good tier. It's a really good Pixar movie. Next up, we got Inside Out. Inside Out is also one that people praise top 5. Even I think some people call it top 5. But Inside Out's a great Pixar movie. It's one of the saddest ones, I would think, so I don't go back to it a lot because I don't want to be like it's kind of depressing too at points. I don't want to be like depressed while I'm watching a Pixar movie, but it's one that I praise for Pixar because it's kind of a tough story for them to tell, because it's like so sad and depressing at times, especially when sadness is on screen, telling the story and how the girl she does not want to be in this new home. She didn't want to move out. It's hard for her to make friends at school, It's a very hard film for some kids to understand when they're watching Pixar movies at the age that they're meant for them. So this film, it's a really different Pixar film. It's really dark, but, I feel like it really works. And all the emotions are great. I love Bill Hader in this one. He's so great. So, I'm going to put Inside Out in the great tier. Next up is The Good Dinosaur. This is another one where I just don't remember anything. I don't remember anything about A Good Dinosaur, and I just watched it like 2 months ago. But, I gotta praise the cinematography in this one and the animation. The cinematography was great. I liked it, but the story just didn't lead me anywhere. I didn't find a likable character that I just wanted to be with or wanted to watch the whole movie. Man, the dinosaur is okay. The kid is someone that I just don't care about at all. And the journey is fine. The best part about the journey is looking at all the landscapes that Pixar was able to build and animate. I think that's the best part of the movie. So I'm going to put The Good Dinosaur in the bad tier. It's just another one that I just don't care about. Finding Dory is our next one. Also, Finding Dory is a movie that should not have been made. I don't think Dory deserves a full movie about herself. Dory is one of those side characters that really only works as a side character for me, because you get those movies where side characters are there to have comedic relief and they work because they're only there as a side character. And her having her own movie just didn't work for me. I do like the setting of this movie though, when they're in like a little zoo, all those little places. I like the little octopus guy. That was cool. Octopus or squid, I forget what it was. But Finding Dory is just another one of those films that I think just wasn't needed. Ellen DeGeneres, I think she does a better job here with her emotional efforts and how she's trying to find her parents, and she can't because she can't remember them. But I just wish that we could have just got Finding Nemo 2 or just Nemo 2 instead of this. But it's still an okay film. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not a movie like I'll go back to. Next up is Cars 3. Cars 3 is Cars 3 is not a bad film at all, but they really sold it in their trailers like it was going to be one of the darkest Pixar movies, like Inside Out or like an Up would be, but it really wasn't that dark when you fully watch it. Because you have that shot in the trailer where he like goes up in the air, he's like crashing. That made it seem dark to me. But once I watched it on Disney Plus, when Disney Plus first came out, this is actually the first film I watched when Disney Plus first came out. And it's more lighthearted than I would have wanted, but I guess that's what they're trying to go for with the Cars franchise. The female counterpart of this movie, I hardly remember her name. I really don't remember her name, but I don't really find a lot of interest in her character. I know they're trying to pass the mantle in this movie, but I just didn't care about that storyline at all. I was more interested in the storyline of, Owen Wilson's character. He was losing. Lightning McQueen lost. He lost everything. He had to come back from ground one. He had to start training like never before. I was more into that story, and that story really took a back seat when we got halfway, and he just turned into a mentor. I didn't really appreciate that. I wish the story would have focused still on Lightning McQueen, but I guess Pixar did what they had to do because I guess the Cars franchise is not going anymore. So Cars 3 is more okay to me than bad. I'd still watch it over Cars 2 and Good Dinosaur. And next up we got Coco. Coco is a movie that I really had no intention of watching, but everyone told me it's great, it's amazing. So I watched it. It's indeed a great and amazing movie. This is also one of Pixar's best animated movies. I'm not sure if it got nominated at the Oscars. Or, I know, I do think this won Best Animated Picture the year it came out. 2017 and 2018. I think I do remember it won. But this movie is amazing. It's amazing what Pixar was able to do with this movie. The soundtrack is awesome. The whole story of this movie is actually like really tender. And the twist comes out of nowhere. I didn't expect a twist when it happened. And I actually loved when they get to the afterlife kind of part, and then everyone's just a skeleton. That's so cool to me. And the villain's cool, but he's kind of weak. He's not really like a villain that is like an all-star Pixar villain, but he's a little weak, and the ending really gets you emotional by the end. So I don't know. Is Coco a great tier or an amazing tier for me? I don't know what I would do here. I don't know. This is hard for me. I think I'm gonna put Coco in the amazing tier. It deserves it. It's a very rewatchable movie. So next up we got Incredibles 2. I don't care. Incredibles 2, it's amazing. I'm fascinated how people don't like Incredibles 2, and I don't know how, but its animation looks so good. It's updated so much. I mean, I guess it was 10 years after the first one, but still, it's some crazy good animation. And I can agree with some people that the villain is actually really weak in this one and really like predictable, but the character moments in this movie are off the charts. Since I love the Incredibles family and Frozone, the character moments between them are awesome. And we do have our own Saul Goodman in this movie, which from Better Call Saul, if you get the reference, he's in this movie. It's hilarious for me to just watch it and then hear Bob Odenkirk's voice. I think that's just so funny. But I do love how they're introducing like new heroes in this movie. I love that little plot line at the end. And then when they get on the boat in the final act and Jack just goes rampage, he turns into a big ass baby. That was so funny, but also very cool. And I do like how Dash's powers are more utilized in this movie, but Violet's powers look so much better in this movie than they did in the first. That's some good animation. So I'm going to put Incredibles 2 in the amazing tier. I just love the Incredibles family. Yeah, and it would be higher if, the villain was better, but still. Toy Story 4 is our next one. This is one that I might get hate on, but I don't care what anyone says. This might have not been needed, but I feel like it was an epic, emotional story. This one right here, I think, is Pixar's best animated film in terms of animation because it looks so realistic. It's actually so emotional to me because I grew up with the Toy Story films, and a lot of people have said this, so I'm going to say it. Toy Story 3 was like an ending for Andy, while Toy Story 4 is an ending for Woody. He left the group at the end, and that scene got me really sad at the end because they did a good job with that scene. But Toy Story, we now have Toy Story 5 announced, so I don't know what they're going to do. Are they really going to bring back Woody? I would feel if they brought back Woody, that would be a really bad disservice to Toy Story 4, and it would just make me a little upset because Toy Story 4 is an ending for Woody as a character. He's done. I feel like Toy Story 5 is probably going to be an ending for Buzz, so I think that would be great. But Toy Story 4, more on that. I think this movie is awesome, and I do like oh my god, I do like Forky a lot. He's so funny. He just doesn't want to. He just wants to go in the trash, just let him go in the trash. He's a hilarious character, but he has actually a lot of depth to him. And I love the little scene where him and Woody are just walking along the road trying to get back to the group. That was awesome. And I love every scene in the little toy shop is great. I loved how every scene there is animated. And Keanu Reeves is in this movie. Can we just talk about Keanu Reeves? It's awesome. I feel like Pixar did a better job, though, with Woody and Bo Peep. It made me more into their relationship than I was in the first three. Because in the first three, I just didn't care about their relationship. They just didn't have much going there. But Toy Story 4 made me really like them as a couple. And I'm happy that Woody gets his little happy ending. So Toy Story 4 is also an amazing Pixar film for me. Next up, we got Onward. Onward came out during COVID, I'm pretty sure. And its stars are Chris Pratt and Tom Holland. Pretty interesting pairing there. But, I actually do like this movie a decent bit. I feel like it would work better if the magical elements were used more, because in the third act, you get those really cool magical scenes with the little staff that they have, and the magical elements are used very well in that third act, and I think they should have used that more in the first and second act. But I get what they were trying to do in the first and second act with kind of building an emotional arc with his dad and with them seeing their dad. But, I feel like the magical elements would have helped a lot. I kind of like the world that they're set in. It's kind of like a Lord of the Rings-esque world, but with like different creatures. So I think that's cool, but I think Tom Holland and Chris Pratt did a good job with their voice work here. I guess this was practice for Chris Pratt to go to Mario movie after this. But, it's not Pixar's best, but it's still a good Pixar movie, so it goes in the good tier. Next up, we got Soul. Soul was one that really came out of nowhere. I think this came out in 2020, 2021 or so. It really came out of nowhere. It's in a very moving story. This is also a Pixar film that I would say is more adult-oriented because there's so many adult themes here. I would say every theme in this movie is just for adults to understand, because as a kid, I wouldn't imagine watching this. The animation is brilliant for a kid, but the themes, you just wouldn't really understand the themes. They'd maybe understand where the story's going, but the themes overall are really for adults, and they're really like high on the scale, They're high for Pixar standards, and I really did love this movie a lot. It's not one that I want to go back to a lot because it's really emotional by the end, and you really start feeling a little down by the end with their character. But Jamie Foxx here, he did brilliant. I haven't seen him. This is one of my favorite performances by Jamie Foxx. I think he does brilliant with his voice in this movie, and it just kind of reminded me about La La Land because he plays the piano and he's in a band. But I don't know why. It just did. But, I feel like the story is awesome. And what they do with these two characters is great. So I'm going to put Soul in the great tier. It's close to the amazing tier. Maybe after a couple more rewatches, it will be there, but it's close. I have a hard time putting it in the amazing tier since I don't go back to it a lot, but it's close. Next up, we got Luca. Luca is also one of the films that went straight to Disney+. They've been going Disney+ for a while, until Lightyear. Then they went back to the theater. But Luca is also one that surprised me a lot. I have a great time with Luca. I feel like it's a different kind of Pixar movie when they're like in the water and then they go outside the water. They're just looking to be human, hang out with the humans. And I really like the friendship between them. Silenzio Bruno, the little meme that they have there. I feel like that's great. I really like the ending of the movie. It's not as emotional as other Pixar movies, but it still gets you like feeling for them as friends, feeling for him like he got outed because he's a fish. But then they learn that a lot of other fish have been living amongst the humans for a while. So this is a Pixar film that I actually find a lot of rewatch value in, so I'm going to put it in the great tier. Next up is Turning Red. I might get hate for this take, but I didn't see a lot here that was special. I didn't really feel the story. Maybe a story wasn't made for me, but I can find a lot of other movies that the story wasn't made for me, but I still think they're great movies. I still think they're emotionally moving. But Turning Red didn't do anything for me. as I was watching it. It really didn't do much for me. The animation wasn't anything spectacular. It's something that I've seen from other Pixar movies. I think that this movie came after Soul, and I feel like that's a really bad disservice to this movie because this movie looks infinitely worse than Soul. Maybe they didn't have as many workers on this movie, but the animation just looked like plain animation from Pixar, nothing special. The story also didn't get me moving. I didn't like the main character at all. I didn't really feel for her because she was a little annoying in my opinion. So it's just not one that I like. A lot of people can like it. I respect you for that, but I just don't like it at all. So I'm gonna put it in the bad tier. Next up is Lightyear. Lightyear's one that I struggle with because I love Chris Evans and I thought it was pretty good when it first came out. But as I rewatch it and go back to it, I just don't find a lot there. You know, the little plot twist in the middle is interesting, but I don't think it's fully realized, and I don't think it's a great plot twist. I think it's a little lazy for them to do it that way. And I feel like them making Lightyear was a little lazy because that wasn't needed. You didn't really need a story about the toy that was in Toy Story. It got a lot of people confused. It didn't make a lot of the box office. Its reviews weren't great. The first act, though, I think is really great, but then the second and third act just really let go at that point. So, you know, I struggle with Lightyear, but I still think that Lightyear can go at the bottom of the good tier. I'm not going to put it at okay because the first act is so good, but it can go in the good tier. Now we got Elemental. All right, so yeah, I was not expecting to be as surprised as I was after watching Elemental, but the more I think about it, the more I really love this film. I just really connected with these two characters, and there's elements, you know, they're fire and water, Ember and Wade. Pixar really takes you on a journey through just these two characters connecting in a world where elements don't mix. You know, it's a full romance story, but they have to get through all these barriers first. And I actually think it's a really unique story, and I love how Pixar told it. It's, as I said, one of Pixar's better recent films because they were on a kind of a downhill tread for a while, and I'm happy that they're really picking it back up, and they have some amazing films coming up after this, so I'm just excited to see. And you guys should all go support this movie in theaters. I know they've been putting Pixar movies on Disney Plus, but this one is a great time in the theaters, so I'm gonna put it in the great tier. And if I keep watching it more, maybe it'll go to amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it's one of those stories that really just works a lot. So let's get to our final ranking here. In the bad tier, I'm gonna put Turning Red above Cars 2 and The Good Dinosaur. Good Dinosaur is my least favorite Pixar movie because I just didn't connect with it at all, and I felt like it was just kind of boring at parts. The okay tier, I'm gonna go ahead and put Brave in the second place, and then Cars 3 at the end because I'm not a big Cars fan. Like I said, I respect people who enjoy Cars. Let me tell you that. But I can still have fun watching it. I just don't think it's a great film overall. In the good tier, I'm gonna go ahead and put Monsters University in second, Finding Nemo in first, and then we're gonna go with Cars 1 over Bug's Life and Lightyear at the bottom of good because Cars 1 is actually a pretty good film. Cars 2 and 3 I just don't like that much, but Cars 1 gets it all right because I love the town stuff. Finding Nemo is close to the great tier, but I just don't go back to it enough to really enjoy it that much. Lightyear, I've liked it a lot more on rewatch. I disliked it more on rewatch, so it just goes at the bottom for me. The great tier, the great tier has a lot of great movies in it, but I'm gonna go ahead and put Monsters Inc. at first, of course, Soul then, and I'm actually gonna shake things up. I'm gonna put Up in first, then that. Then I'm gonna put Soul, then Elemental. Yeah, Elemental above Inside Out and Luca. Elemental could overtake Soul and Monsters Inc. if I go see it more times and find it to be better. But yeah, I think Elemental is so good. Go see that movie. Now we're on to the amazing tier. We got a lot here to go through, man. I don't know, but I do know one thing. Incredibles is my favorite Pixar movie, and then it's probably gonna go to WALL-E. WALL-E is amazing. I will put Toy Story 4. I will put Toy Story 4 at the bottom, then Coco, and then I'll put Incredibles 2 at the bottom because the villain really drags that down, but I still find the family element amazing. Then Toy Story 4, then Coco, and then I'm gonna put Toy Story 2 above that, and then Ratatouille or Toy Story 1? That's where I'm stuck at, because I'm pretty sure Toy Story 3 will sit there. Ratatouille, you know, I'm gonna put Ratatouille's. I'm gonna stick Ratatouille there, because Toy Story is above it for me, because I really grew up watching that movie. That's probably the first Pixar movie I've ever seen, so I find that to be amazing. But yeah, Incredibles and WALL-E, they really stand on their own, because I connect with those stories a lot more. But you know, Pixar, they're a great studio. I just cannot wait for what they're gonna make next. But leave your favorite Pixar movies in the comments. I'd love to connect with you guys and really talk about Pixar movies, because I respect everyone's opinion. I feel like you could have a right opinion. Everyone can have their own opinion. Opinions change, you know. No one's opinion's wrong. So leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.